Welcome to the A&R Worldwide podcast presented by Nuplak with your boy Taylor Jones here as your host. This is the Executives in Discussion podcast where we talk to experienced executives and creatives. We dive into their journeys, ups and downs, the state of the business, where they see it going, and of course gathering some priceless advice and key takeaways. If you're in the music industry or you're looking to get your start in the music biz and want to hear from the very best, this podcast is for you. Coming up today, we have Haezy Kim, Vice President of Global Strategy at SM Entertainment's new publishing arm, Kreation Music Rights. KMR has been very busy building its arsenal by signing top songwriting talent and acquiring established music publishers, all with the ambitious goal of becoming Asia's leading music publisher within the next 5 years. With their worldwide expansion under the helm of Haezy Kim, they've already signed over 100 writers, beginning with those who have worked on songs for SM and K-pop artists for many years. This is a really unique and interesting conversation by a female powerhouse executive. Let's get into discussion. Hi, Haezy.
Hi, Taylor.
How are you? Can you remember 5 minutes ago when you were like, do I need to really be in here? And then we're chilling, you went, hi.
Hello. Cool.
Haezy, thank you so much for being here.
No, thanks for having me. This is super exciting, and it's been a great week so far.
Yeah, well, we're in Burbank at MUSEXPO.
Yes.
And is this your first time here?
At MUSEXPO, yes, but I used to live in LA, so Burbank is not new.
Burbank is not new at all, yeah. And I remember, because luckily I've had the pleasure of meeting you priorly, and we've had some discussions getting to know each other. So you're recently, and I'm not sure if it's recently, but you're now at KMR,
Yes.
Kreation Music Rights, as Vice President of Global Strategy. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Great, cool.
Well, KMR is a new company, so recently KMR started and I started too. Everybody at KMR started.
Yeah, so everyone
recently,
started. Yeah, but you've been there a while and are helping to assemble that team and helping to build up the company and what it is. So, what I want to know from you is, first of all, let's rewind the clock back and figure out, where did your career in the music business begin? Is the history prior to KMR, is it music business? Is it finance? Is it business? Is it strategy? Because there are a million ways that you could combine this role from various backgrounds, because it's a hybrid of business and strategy. And of course, you need to know the music business also. So I'm really curious as to your background, how you started and how you got to this position.
Cool. I guess it all started as a passion for just music. I went to UCLA and I was part of an a cappella group. I do more of the business side of the things now,
I understand.
As a hobby, I love singing. I love karaoke. And so I started joining, just doing
Just
music.
saying, KBBQ and karaoke before you leave. Just saying.
Yes, and soju.
And tons of soju.
Lots of soju.
I literally own a soju company.
That is true. I've never tried that. So I wanted to just do music as a kind of a hobby. I just loved it. And then at UCLA, we have this great program called Music Industry. So I was a communications major, but then I thought, I love this industry. And then living in LA, you just go to so many festivals. There's so many music events that you could just like immerse yourself in music. And I love that, because I moved around quite a bit before I got to LA, and before that I didn't really have that where I was growing up.
So I'm going to ask you about the types of music festivals and things that you took advantage of living here, but you said you moved around before you got to LA, and so you're Korean, right?
Yes.
Right, so were you born in Korea?
I was born in Korea. I lived in Pittsburgh when I was young for a little bit.
Okay.
I moved back to Korea, did some school there, and then I lived in Moscow, Russia.
Wow.
Before I moved to LA. So
what year did you move to LA?
2013.
2013, and you came to LA from Moscow to go to UCLA then?
Yes.
And what were you doing in Moscow?
I went to high school, but I primarily went there because my family did some business there.
Was working there.
Yeah. So I did my high school in Moscow, Russia, which is completely different from what it is in LA. So it was like a 180 shift when I got here. And I'm like, wow, it's not cold anymore and there's no snow anymore. It's just great. And there's like festivals. It's like the music scene is great. I just loved it. And I fell in love with LA, the city, the vibe, everything. And quite luckily, I was able to join an a cappella group. I did also choir in college, and then I met a few friends who just liked to just meet up and jam for a few nights and on a Thursday night. So it was just a very amazing scene out here with both amateur and professional musicians. So I did that in college, and then I figured, actually, I love doing this. I love being around the creatives. I'm not going to be a professional musician, but it's just a great energy you get from working with musicians, songwriter, and players. I thought maybe I could make a career out of it. So part of the program required you to have a few internships in music-related business. So I got my first internship in a small music publisher, and that's how I started with music publishing. I didn't even know what music publishing was at first, and everybody thinks it's like, oh, do you sell like lyrics or like sheet music? Do you sell
books of lyrics?
Yeah, that's what everybody asks, and like if you're not in the industry. But I learned music publishing through doing a few internships here and there, and then one of my last internships was at Warner Music Groups, and that's where I was at Warner Chapel. I started out...
And where were the internships? Here in LA?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So you met everyone at Warner over here, and when did the connection back to K-pop?
Oh,
when was that made? Because now you're working for a Korean company, and not necessarily that KMR is only doing K-pop, of course, and K-pop is a big part of what you do, naturally being owned by SM. But do you have a passion for K-pop? Was that instinctively part of your DNA when you were growing up, or did you learn because you didn't grow up completely in Korea?
Right. So I think it's a mix of both. Like when I was living in Korea in like my elementary and middle school years, like of course I had artists that I really, really loved and followed.
Who were they? Who were you like a fan of?
I liked Big Bang.
Okay.
I followed Girls' Generation, which are like the first
I've worked
amazing
with Girls' Generation, which is
of K-pop idol. I was a big fan, but then like as I was moving around and living abroad, like I kind of listened to just non-K-pop music.
Well, I guess there wasn't much K-pop in Moscow.
No, not really. So, but this opportunity came quite recently. So I was at Warner Chapel primarily doing deals, music publishing deals, financial evaluation. So really getting into the weeds of like, what is a music publisher's return on investment? So I was more on the business side of things for a while. And
I'm curious, and sorry to interrupt you, but you have a communications major, started, but you have a passion for music very clearly, especially since you played as a hobby, and then you started getting involved in that, and then you did internships, and after some internships, you ended up at Warner and you started working for Warner. But what was the entry point at Warner? Because did you go in the A&R department, or what department could you have gone in for Warner Publishing that ended up being on the analysis of financial return for music publishing deals? Because it's a very specific and usually qualified job that usually has some kind of blend between a CPA or a business major or an economics major. Exactly.
So it was kind of like through...
Are you a geek for numbers, and music, and so that's what the blend was?
What mattered was that I was an intern in a sync department at first. So I was doing film, TV sync, playlisting while I was an intern, and I like to talk about a specific person that made all of this happen, whose name is Brian Jenkins. He used to be at Warner Chapel Music's deal office, and then he was heading the Asia's division at Chapel, and now he has his own company. But it was kind of by chance. I used to sit at this cubicle when I was at Sync Team, and his office was right in front. And then as an intern, I'm very energetic. I want to talk to everybody. Everyone says oh, the doors are open. Come ask questions. So one day he was just walking in, and I was just hi, good morning. I'm Haezy. I'm the new intern. And he was oh, cool. What do you do? And I was oh, I'm part of the sync team. And I was asking, what do you do? And he's oh, I oversee the deals team in Warner Chapel. And I'm what does that even mean? And then he's oh, if you want to come talk about music publishing deals, I'd be happy to have a chat with you.
Yeah.
And tell me what your favorite musician or a band is, and we could kind of do a walk mock-up of like what a music publishing deal would look like.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I was like, okay, that's very cool. And then as a very eager intern, the next time
so you were a sponge. You were just taking it all in and learning
and like,
and
what
growing.
is this music publishing deal? And then so I prepared like what you would call an A&R deck of a artist that I liked at the time.
Now, of course, I'm an A&R executive, but for our listeners, explain what an A&R deck is.
It's kind of like showcasing who the writer, I guess the songwriter in publishing sense.
For publishing, songwriter, or artist, or producer. It would apply to an artist too.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a creative description of who they are, what kind of music do they do, what kind of following do they have. So it's kind of an overview summary of who this person is that I want to sign.
And why they would be of interest to the company.
And where would you go with this band or an artist? Like, where do you see their career taking off? Who are their main audience? So it's kind of like a holistic view of who this talented person is.
So you prepared an A&R deck.
Yes, and I was not an A&R. And
okay.
So I prepared this, and I was so eager to bring this to him. It was like a 5-page thing that I made to show him, and then we had a meeting. He looked at it, and then I guess he was impressed by what I've prepared for just like a coffee chat kind of
and
a
the
meeting.
Initiative, I would imagine too.
Yeah, and I learned so much in that like half an hour to an hour chat with him. He walked through all of what it's like to have a music publishing deal, what are advances, what are splits, term, like all of the basics of music publishing and how he uses that in his job. And I was like, this is fascinating. Like, it's so cool to like put numbers into what a creative artist or like what their background is. So you would see like, oh, this artist has how many songs on Spotify or like how many releases.
And this artist is worthless. I'm kidding.
A lot of the times it happens, but I still love the artists that I follow.
Of course.
It was so
just
cool.
To clarify, just from a numbers revenue perspective.
It's quite sad. Like sometimes I have like my indie artists and they're
that's
like...
the job though. The job is evaluating whether or not there's, when it comes to music business, not just the passion, but the music business is about generating revenue. And sometimes there are writers, producers that have an ability to generate revenue, and there are others that maybe will one day, but they need a lot of development, and sometimes it's not the mandate for the publishing company.
And also, it's like sometimes you take a different career path to become a successful artist, whatever that means for different people. So I had a great meeting, and then I was so intrigued by what he does as a for the business, and I guess he saw potential in me too. So after that meeting, he basically vouched for me to be part of the company, and I was about to graduate. He on my last day of internship, I just came in to say bye, and he's like,
"You're working here now."
Yeah. Would you want to work for me? And I'm like, really? Like, you want a communications major to work for your finance team? And he's like, yeah, everything in this job could be taught, but one thing that can't be taught is the initiative and the drive. And
that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's how I got the job. He literally walked me through all the DCF models, the financial models, and everything that goes into evaluating what a deal is worth. And he literally taught me everything for the job. And a few years later, I became good with what I do. I wanted to pursue that a little bit more professionally. So I went to go get my MBA at Columbia. So that helped a lot with being more practical about the skills that I have and some of the theories that I probably didn't get from my college education.
So were you doing an MBA in the evenings or part-time? Or did you take a gap and then go and do that full-time?
I moved to New York to do my MBA program. Luckily, because my team was still in LA, I took classes from like 8 a.m. to 12, and then at 12, it's
did a full
morning for Pacific
good
time.
For you.
So it was hectic. I was like full-time working and full-time MBA at the same time. So it was the most hectic
so much
2
respect
years
for that.
of my life.
You hear that, people? No excuses.
So it's like when people talk about time management, like if you want to do it, you could make it happen. And then I think that was a good
100%.
example of like how I try to manage my time. I didn't want a gap in my career, and also gap in your music industry career means gap in your relationships. So I wanted to maintain that, and at the same time.
Say that one more time.
A gap in your career in music industry is a gap in your relationship, because relationship is so important.
The relationships are the most important thing in the music business.
Yeah, so that continued.
At least on the creative side.
Yeah. But in general, everywhere, like even at the conferences like this, you meet so many people, but it's really what you do after those meetups that matter and continue on, because you could just talk all day, but then if there's no follow-ups, no texts back or no emails back, you're not really making that connection real. So I think that's really important.
So you're a hard worker. You put in the time, you put in the effort, you learn, and you're absorbing all of this and just bettering yourself all the time, which is fantastic. And what a great quality to have. You went to New York, not back to New York, but you went to New York, to Columbia, and you got your MBA while you're working. What happens next?
So after that, also living in New York was a little bit of a different experience.
Completely different. It's a completely different city.
Right. But there's also great music out there. I loved the theaters. So Broadway was one of the reasons why I really wanted to be in New York.
Especially being an a cappella singer.
Yes,
so I can see why
I get goosebumps
the
whenever
Broadway.
I go to the shows. It's like, how are they so
that's great.
good live?
Have you ever been to the West End in London?
No, I haven't.
Okay, that's something that you need to try then, because it's equally famous for, musicals and yeah. But okay.
So I was living in New York. I was continuing working in this position that I had. And then going into MBA, I've just met so many people in different industries, and also within music industry, so many different types of roles and genres and passions. I thought maybe I could try something different, and maybe it would be a good time for me to see what other opportunities are there in the market. And then kind of perfect timing, my previous coworker, who is at SM Entertainment, reached out to me and was like, would you be interested in doing something in K-pop? And then I was like, I've never thought about it, but I am Korean and I used to love K-pop. And K-pop also isn't like K-pop these days. Like there's really no difference between what a K-pop music is and a general pop music is, because the music genre is so fluid now. So I was
it's so fluid. There used to be the quintessential K-pop, which had the dance breaks and the R&B bridges,
very
formulated. But these days it's
not.
Pop music.
And you listen to some of these songs and then you don't even realize
there are elements that you can you throw in a little rap here, or there's a little break, or there are certain things, or like a minor note just before the chorus comes in. Small things that make K-pop a little more distinct.
K-pop,
but ultimately it's the language and of the lyrics, that makes it K-pop, and the people who perform it.
So I was thinking that could be a great opportunity, and it was not just to do K-pop. It was like to do K-pop publishing and make it more global, which was something that I would be so interested in, because a lot of the deals that I oversaw when I was at Warner Chappell was international deals. So I was interested in bringing something that is so local to a more global phenomenon and global audience. So I was like, this could be a really fun opportunity
experience,
for me. Yeah. So after that, I had a few meetings with Chris Lee, who is the CEO of Kreation Music Rights, but also the chief A&R officer of SM Entertainment. And I listened to his vision, what he wants to do with K-pop and what he wants to do in just a music publisher, his vision for it. And I was like, that is amazing. Like, you have such a forward-thinking idea, and I want to help build that process. I never worked for a company that is like a startup or a building environment. I've always been with a corporate culture where it's
Which is funny, because SM is not a startup by any means.
Right, but then within
KMR
SM,
within it,
KMR is
you
so
get the best
new.
of both worlds here.
Exactly.
You get the stability that the major brings.
Right.
And you get that really cool startup culture
so
to learn.
it's a really cool environment where everybody is so eager, and then we always wear different hats. Sometimes we have to do creative, sometimes we have to be strategic and business and finance. But like at the same time, you have that energy of a new company, but also the backing of our parent company with stability, with support, financial support, legal support. So it's kind of best of both worlds. Sometimes it's a little chaotic because every startup environment involves a little bit of fun and surprises.
I have 14 of them. Yeah, I get it.
Right, yeah. But it's been a pleasure working, and I love going to shows. I still love going to shows. That's probably why I entered this industry in the first place. Everywhere you go, like at a show, even if it's not my favorite genre, like the audience and the environment and the vibe it creates and the communication between the artists and the fans is what I really enjoy.
And now working for an SM-owned company, are you going to a lot of SM gigs?
I've been to a few.
Yeah.
And they are just
any highlights?
Well, I went to NCT Dream's show last summer, and it was hilarious because I went to see what it's like. It's kind of like a market research partly too, but also to enjoy the music. First of all, any K-pop show, if you go to one, the performance and the production is top notch.
I've been to K-pop shows and seen our own songs that we've made, and that they're performing them back to us with 25,000, 30,000 people in the audience singing the words, and it's like
with the light sticks and everything.
Wow, it's
mind-blowing.
Unbelievable.
Right. So I went there, and it was like, this is such a perfectly curated performance with the songs, the dances, the lights, the screens, the videos, everything about it.
Part of what makes K-pop really is
great.
The brand and the performance and the glitz of it all.
Like mind-blowing performance. And then I remember there was this one teenager girl that sat next to me, and she came by herself. She was a hardcore fan, and she had all the gears, all of their merch and everything. She sat by herself and was so into this music. And then they were performing their last song. She cried. And I was just like, oh, wow, she must have loved this experience so much and like emotionally connect with this artist. And that's what makes K-pop fans so special. It's more than the music. It's kind of their dedication to the artist and the things that they create.
For some of these fans, K-pop and the artists that they love and support, it's their way of life.
Yeah,
exactly. It's the friends that they surround themselves with online. It's the communities that they talk in. I will never call it X. The Twitter groups that they're part of, where they go back and forth and share bonds and camaraderie. It's the being part of the street teams. It's buying every edition of every album, with the original one, the repack, the
deluxe
edition,
album, and then sending the artists birthday gifts, like remembering them. If you ever go to Korea, you're gonna see like Subway ads, and those are paid by the fans to congratulate their birthdays.
I didn't know that. I've seen those, but I didn't know that the fans.
The fan official groups do that for the artist specifically. Wow. If it's somebody's birthday, it's like, happy birthday, somebody, you are amazing. It's just mind-blowing how much love and passion they have for these artists. And in return, they keep getting great music, they get good support. And a lot of the things that I see in K-pop industry is the artist is as dedicated to the fans as the fans are to the artist. So it's kind of a mutual communication. There's always like special shows, special little clips that they dedicate to their super fans and their fan groups. It's just an amazing thing to see. But the funniest thing I realize is after the show, you see like tons of parents coming to pick their kids up, because these are all like minors.
Yeah, they're all kids.
Yeah, they're all kids. Like they gotta go home at 10. So there's like hundreds of parents just waiting outside, waiting for their kids to come out.
And it's impossible to get an Uber also.
Right. So that was like a mind-blowing experience. Like you don't get that at a different show. Even in the US, like I don't think that's common to have that kind of concert live experience. And I was just like, wow.
Short of Taylor Swift, you know.
Kind of. I would say the closest thing we have is like Swifties here, but also every K-pop fan
the old school Beliebers when they were around.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. So it was just a different experience. And the more I see how it works, how the industry operates, it's just a perfectly curated form of art and music. And I think that's what really brings people in, like different culture. You don't have to understand what the songs mean, but like you have a love for it because of the great energy it provides. It's upbeat and it's inspiring. It's hopeful. And that's what these younger teenagers
I don't know
need.
if you've ever stepped back and listened to talk about K-pop, because I just got to witness it. And I'm telling you, you have quite a degree of passion for it also.
I think so too. I think the more that I'm involved in it.
You're involved in it. It's what you do now.
You have to love what you do. So,
you have to love what you do.
Yeah, like now I just listen to all the new songs that come out and then try to, there's a lot of them coming out because K-pop industry, there's a very fast turnaround of songs, and I'm going into business now, but like there's always new material out there.
I was speaking with Robin, who, you know, is your colleague, and Robin was telling me that SM need 2,000 songs to release every year. So that's a lot of songs.
Right.
I would imagine that KMR now are tasked with providing at least the most of those because you're an SM-owned company. It would make the most sense for that to be the case. So that's a lot of K-pop for you guys to get through. And not just K-pop, but a lot of just hit good records. But as a publishing company, I want to ask if outside of K-pop, you know, as a publishing entity that's building, and you're building out your team globally, you're bringing in music executives, publishing executives, producing executives from all over the world to help build this machine.
Right.
Does that mean that there are ambitions to be placing music outside of K-pop?
Yes,
also,
definitely.
So tell me a little about the mandate for KMR and what the focus is from an A&R standpoint besides K-pop, because that's of course so innately part of the DNA of the company.
Right. So we just launched our Europe office. So Robin is our head of Europe. It's located in Sweden, Stockholm. We are in process of setting up our US business, which I am in charge of and heading right now. And the purpose of these global locations is that our writers are not 100% solely K-pop. Like we have just amazing writers and producers who have hits in K-pop, but like now K-pop could be a pop music could be K-pop. So we are trying to make that cross-pollination of genre more fluid by having these global locations and entities. So right now for the US business, we're talking to so many labels and partners here, trying to see if we could bring some of our writers from Korea have some breakout hits in the US market and vice versa. Like if there are writers that has not had a hit in K-pop but has an interest in writing for those, we could help them with the expertise that we have in Korea. So,
and is that the mission to create global opportunities for the domestic local writers in Korea?
It's both, yeah.
Or sign a US-born writer that's doing US stuff. Is that also part of the mandate?
Both of it. So it's kind of both ways. If actually
the best producer writer wins ultimately.
Yeah, good music is good music. So we do want to sign US talent here, and just kind of a fact. About 30% of SM released songs are written by US writers. So not all K-pop is written by Korean. Right? So there's amazing producers and writers out here who just have the talent. And as a company, we want to sign just good talent in general. Like we want to pitch for big artists in the US. We want to get into the US music market scene, whether that's Latin music, reggae, Afrobeats. It doesn't matter what genre it is, as long as we could have great talent.
Meaningful contributions.
Yeah, right. So I think it's kind of both ways, bringing some opportunities for our domestic and K-pop background writers in the US market and the European market if they haven't had experiences yet, but also just signing good talent out here who might be interested in having hits in the K-pop market. So we do want to eventually, I think the goal is if there is no distinction between K-pop and pop, that's kind of where we're going for. Just good music is where we want to be. But we're starting with K-pop because that is our expertise.
That's your expertise, but the goal is a global music publishing company.
Definitely.
Yeah.
We're targeting Asia first, and we'll be Asia's biggest music publisher in the next few years. And then in the meantime, we want to reach out to the global markets. We have a lot of collaborations set in place with China, Taiwan, Southeast Asia. So we are also exploring opportunities in that market. India is a big country that is growing, and the music out there is also heavily influenced by how K-pop had its start. So I think looking at the growth in some of these Southeast Asian countries and how they are trying to replicate how K-pop became such a global trend, but in their own unique cultural ways. I think it's an exciting phenomenon.
That's what's happening in India also right now. And I just had a conversation about that. And there are bands. There are literally bands being built in India.
Girl groups that are like basically kind of like the early stages of K-pop music.
Exactly.
And so interesting to see that. So.
Yeah. Well, we're literally a part of placing music over there too at the moment. So I was very surprised and honestly impressed by what they're doing.
Right.
It's good. Music is in a good place globally at the moment. There's tons of good music. How do you feel as a publisher about what's happening with AI at the moment and AI literally creating music? There are tools that where AI is actually creating the song from scratch.
Yeah, I saw that video a few weeks back. It was like 100% written
song
by an AI song, right?
Yeah. Well, the DJ Blau just released a thing called, I think, Royal, it's called. And he has a tool that makes a dance song from start to finish. You say, I want 128 BPM, C major key. I want this I want happy, energetic, but romantic. I want this kind of vocal, this kind of style, go. And, and you got a song and then you can tweak it. And then and he actually commercially released an EP that was 100% made by AI and composed by AI. Of course, he made the AI, so more credible for him. But it's fascinating, and I'm wondering as a publisher now, not because publishers don't only focus on placing music with artists, but especially in Korea and neighboring APAC regions. Also, they've been really, really ahead of the game with virtual groups, avatar groups, holograms, games like League of Legends, where KDA was born. Now they may not need to have a Madison Beer sing a vocal because AI can do that for you with a good demo vocal, and you can just change the voice, and you may not even need a composer or a producer behind the track if AI can do it. If the virtual group or the character is actually what draws in the loyalty of the consumer. So, is that an area that you guys as a publisher will experiment or explore in?
I think it's definitely an area that we are going to focus on in the next few years. Obviously, it's still in the early stages of complete songwriting. You still need a human talent to kind of tweak it and make the changes to make it more exciting as a composition. But
it's something you're aware of and eager to learn more
it is a good tool. And I think with any technology, there are ways to use it and benefit from it. Like, for example, there's video generating AIs that could create music videos out of scratch with nothing in real filming. I think it could be a good opportunity for artists that do not perhaps have all the financial means to record such music video or production. Like if you have limited resources, that could be a tool you can use. It could be a tool to just create music and then release it in different languages, which is already happening. And that's also part of globalization. Like you can create a song in Korean or primarily in English, and then at the same time, simultaneously release in 5 to 10 different languages.
And one button can do that. It's pretty wild. We've been pitching music to SM, but if we're pitching for NCT 127, for example, we're actually changing the vocal using AI, the demo vocal, into NCT 127. So then it starts singing it in various different voices from the group members. And then we literally put it through a machine and it spits us out an NCT 127 performance of it. We place it back onto the track, bounce it again, and then we pitch it to the label with the artist singing the song. And so they can hear what it would sound like with the artist singing it. And of course, it's not actually the artist. It's an AI vocal. It's close.
Generated.
It's not completely, but I did it recently also. I was putting together a record between a really major DJ, of course, confidentially, so I'm not going to say openly who it was on this podcast, but a major DJ and a major Indian act. And we were looking for a hook to be sung, and we thought, this would sound great with Rita Ora. And so we had a demo vocal that actually was sung by Alon, our record producer. And we put it through AI and then downloaded Rita Ora singing that same hook, placed it in the place of Alon's vocal, and then pitched the song. And we can pitch it to Rita's team, and she'll hear what she would actually sound like on the record.
When they first receive that, it's like, I've never sang
this song. They'll say, it sounds like me.
Yeah.
It sounds like something I would do. And it's really helped the pitching process.
And then it gives you an early start to what it would look like. You can have more visions, creative
Now with professionals, real publishing companies and management companies that use it responsibly for pitching, it never goes external. of course, it's okay. It's a tool that you can apply to, and it helps the pitching process. But it is dangerous to have that software out there for those that can't necessarily be trusted, who may decide to release a full reader or a song and put it on Spotify. So, you know, there's pros and cons, but I guess there is misuse of anything in life, and you can decide how you use it.
I think as music professionals, we are responsible for deciding where the future of these technologies can go. Not all the time it's used with bad intention, but there are potentially ways that people can monetize it differently and then take somebody else's voice.
It opens up a whole new wave of piracy.
It's a new conversation that we have to have. And I think what's important is acknowledging that the technology is there, what new kind of regulations or copyright laws should be in place before it becomes such a publicly available tool. I think that's the conversation we should be having, and making sure there are guidelines to at least maintain the integrity of the songwriters and protect those who have the copyrights to certain things. Like, you don't want these technologies to go out of place and then just be used by everybody to create something that should not be created in the music ecosystem. But as long as there are guidelines, good regulation, and that should be driven by the people in music, I believe. So
of course,
the more that we know
that's our duty.
Right. So I think us as music professionals and music business experts and people in business, we have both the...
With great power comes great responsibility.
Exactly, yeah. So we're responsible. We could make actions happen. And I think that's what music publishers should do, or labels and everybody in the business. If there's a great technology, like, of course, go use it, but let's be responsible for what we do with it.
Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and opinion and your story today. I've loved speaking to you, and I've loved feeling your passion for what you do. It's magnetic.
Oh, thank you.
So thank you, and I wish you and the whole KMR team all the best of luck with this launch of the company. And I'm looking forward to doing a lot of work together, and and let's keep it going.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course.
It was so great.
Thanks, Haezy.
Thank you.
Make sure to subscribe to the podcast, follow the Spotify page, and stay tuned for the next episode of Executives in Discussion on the A&R Worldwide podcast presented by Nuplak with your host, Taylor Jones. See you next time.